Enough gold, silver, and jewels had been taken to make each pirate a wealthy man. Along with the material fruits of their labor, there was found to be a supercargo of Chinese who were being taken to Spain to be sold as slaves. An investigation determined they had been taken prisoner as the result of a policy of forceful domination used by the Spanish to secure their position in Manila, wresting away, as they could, trade in the hands of the Chinese community. The effort taken in human traffic was considered worthwhile, as prestige gained in front of the nobles could be more valuable than money for the merchant classes and men of military rank. One of the Chinese, having some fluency in Spanish, acted as spokesman. "We have had to fight these dirty people since their decrepit piles of wood heaped up on our shores. We had lived in wonderful peace. Trading posts. A Chinese village where we lived as at home. Our ships went to China and their ships went to India and Arabia. And these people came." He pointed his finger at the shackled Spaniards and hate filled his eyes. "I am Chen, head man of my village, and I see this filth only as a poison. They do not trade. They do not nurture. They only take and destroy. The earth cannot contain them as they are. Well, Chen, you should be glad to know I intend to kill them all and feed their lifeless bodies to the sharks." Tento said this while gesturing to Cheng in a manner to indicate his intended actions. But Cheng thought otherwise. "That captain would, I think, be unwise. It will be best to keep them for ransom. I am a man of the sea and my domains are the vast oceans. I have no castles or estates to keep prisoners. The sword to these scoundrels, and it makes no bother. You do not need a castle of your own. We can take them to the China coast, inland from Hong Kong, where my lord the greatest prince and ruler keeps all in order. He will let me place them in a dungeon for my use at a later time. This great prince is someone you should meet as he has always appreciated talent on the seas." "Why should such a great prince give favors to you, Chen?" "This is no ordinary prince, but he takes a keen interest in all that concerns his realms. He knows me as an important merchant, which there are many of who serve his lordship, and values my friendship. I intend to return to Manila and continue the prosperity I and others have built over the years. The Spanish prisoners will allow me another option." "I think, Chen," the captain started, already feeling himself being filled and pulled in new and unknown directions, "as I was determined on Manila myself, only of course to relieve the Spanish of some of their gold. Our present needs are the same, and so let us take these ministers of evil to your prince. And in Manila, as you did not know of me and my people, would you also have tried to take from us?" "Not likely, Chen. I do what I do, not for the gold, but to punish the Spaniard. He, of all the peoples of the earth, I detest." In a flash, Tento had his sword out and thrust it into one of the captives, slicing open his stomach. Before the sword was out, his boot was high up on the man and with a push the body collapsed on the deck. "This is the only one I will kill," then with a wave of his hand to the crew said, "Put him over." He followed that with a motion to the headman. "Chen, if you will, come to my cabin and let's draw lines on the charts." Walking away he shouted orders, his mind already racing ahead. "Put the prisoners below, all of them to be stowed on certainty. Feed the Chinese and when they have rested give them tasks to do. Ship's carpenter. Can the other vessel be repaired?" "It can, Captain." "Then please, sir, make it so." Turning to his first mate he instructed, "Put together a crew for sailing her, sir. Be kind enough to put yourself in command. We sail as soon as repairs are made." As they approached Hong Kong, Tento was taken by the exquisite beauty of the watery realm of the cluster of islands gathered to greet the voyager en route to China. The colors of the sea and the island vegetation were all the same, deep blues and greens, mixed with hues of red and orange, with a shimmer and movement creating a blissful imagine usually reserved for dreams. What wonder the Orient? A land so vast he felt humbled as the coast drew near. And it was only by chance he was here visiting the legendary land of Cathay. He felt himself leaving, if only temporarily, his profession as pirate and becoming more Captain Tento, the explorer. Wave after wave cut by the ship's bow. Seabirds soaring above, then swooping down as if to get entwined in the rigging, pulling up in time. Maps and charts of the world swirling in his mind. After China. After Manila. And when he was done with that silly group left behind in Solomon, he would set sail for India. And how vast was India after China? Why are these such large domains? There is Hong Kong. Such a pretty sight. And there is China. She opens for me. I smell her in the breeze. Look at her sampans and junks. Piles of different colors, each moving as if a separate wave, the overall effect one of harmonious motion, majestic and supreme, the sons and daughters of creation, here ebbing their way to and from the coast. As it was necessary to make inquiries as to the current whereabouts of the prince, Tento and Cheng had themselves rowed ashore. A crowded, complicated place for a visitor to discern, Cheng went through the streets with the obvious comportment of self-assurance. Some shopkeepers came out to greet him and they chattered in a language Tento did not understand. It seemed to him, however, that some of the talk was about the prince, as there was a nodding of heads and pointing of fingers, all in a knowing sort of way. Each brief meeting composed of the element of joy in seeing the other person, an agreement that all was well, and the assurance that things would continue in their current pleasant state of affairs. Tento enjoyed as observer the contagious behavior of smiling and laughter the met again friends displayed. After 2 hours and a number of discussions later, Cheng felt he had the information required. His Highness is at his coastal residence just abeam, as you would say, Captain, from Canton. We can go most of the way by sea and then there is a brief travel over land to his palace. So, we are done with our tour of Hong Kong? Too brief. The place begs to be looked into. Yes. But so do 1,000 places in China. You do not know, but your eyes are opening. Yes. And my stomach too. The aromas from the kitchens are intoxicating. Then let's duck into one of these shops and take our dinner here. We need not tell any of the crew what they have missed. Having obtained the necessary papers to travel overland from the coast to the prince's residence, Tento, Chen, and a small contingent from Certainty, arrived at the princely estate late in the day, the trip requiring 10 hours, and they had started early. On the road they had observed traders traveling either way and soldiers of the prince who were about their constant duty of surveillance, a practice meant to ensure the wishes of the ruler remained established, complied with, and duly enforced. Such was the world view of the prince that, although his realm may not have been exceedingly large, as it encompassed only a swath of coastal land 500 miles north and south, by 100 miles inland from the coast, Canton being about midway from top to bottom of his kingdom, it was one he ruled supreme, controlling every activity with a penetrating determinacy. Before him and around him other rulers had made their kingdoms much larger and always, inevitably, they lost control. The current ruler knew well enough that the breadth of his lands allowed him the best chance of maintaining order, which besides continuing his wealth, also bestowed peace through the land. And maybe just as important, from this kingdom he had unusual and paramount control of all the lands out to sea that he or any other of the Chinese princes used as stepstones and sources for their immense world of trade. It can be said that Marco Polo, indeed, came late to this game, and that our current prince was at the top of his. Tento and Cheng sat in a small room waiting for their audience. When they were let in, Tento's mind went to calculating. This man is about business. He is intelligent. 6 feet and powerful. His attendants are adroit and precise. This is all business and formal. But the room has artful decorations, and a pleasant atmosphere has been created. He waited for the ruler to speak, for then he would be able to assess the man, Uncover any mistakes in observations taken from his surroundings. Oh Chen. How nice to see you. And you have brought Captain Tento for me to meet. Prince Irkir smiled over at Tento and asked Chen to tell why he had made the journey to see him, for surely Manila is a journey of significance. The voice of the prince enabled Tento to tally his observations of the man's character, it being altogether positive. My lord, Irkir, it is good for me, Chen, your humble merchant and servant, to be in this room with you, to have my eyes once again see the great ruler who makes perfect above and below where he stands, and all around his graceful being. No journey is too long or too perilous if its end is to be in your presence. Well, Chen, it is good to see you also. And it is good for you to say these accolades about me, even though we have discussed many times in the past, that I believe myself to be a man, just like any other, and require only to be surrounded by good men such as yourself to be successful. I say these things to my lord because I truly love him. You have brought great peace to this land. You have made your people wealthy. They live in happiness. It may be so, good Chen. Tell me about Captain Tento, then let's talk about your request. Captain Tento is a pirate king in his own right, my lordship. I witnessed him take his ship, Certainty, to battle against 3 galleons of the Spaniards, and he cut them to ribbons. Myself and 10 other Chinese were prisoners to be taken to Spain as slaves. Captain Tento rescued us from that fate, my lord, and he does it with intentions only to inflict revenge on the Spanish. Captain Tento, Irkir had not taken his eyes off the captain while Chen was speaking. Thank you for saving Chen and the others. Allow me to comment, however, that revenge may sometimes not be the best motivation. Do you engage in pirating for other reasons, Captain? Tento, acting through an interpreter, entered into the dialogue. I take booty, sir. Gold, silver, and jewels. But only from the Spanish. Why limit yourself? There seems to be enough in this occupation for my needs. And the Spanish are so predictable. Leave Manila, on to Mexico, over the isthmus, then around Cuba and the Caribbean, and if they are lucky, if the hurricanes don't sink them, if 100 pirates don't smash and rake them, they might get some of what they are stealing from the New Worlds back to Spain. They do appear foolish, Captain. I hear, however, the King and Queen of Spain are making themselves quite wealthy with the increases they thus obtain. Outfitting an enormous armada to slice at the English. Sending envoys all over the world as they wish, seemingly, to think themselves important. Yes, sir. You are most correct in your observations as to the doings of Spain. For myself, I have been able to take some of those spoils and each time incorporate an extra pleasure from so doing. Well, Spain is Spain, and I do not feel they are capable of becoming engaged in the world of trade, as many other countries have, and I may be forced to deal with them in the future. I keep an open mind. The Dutch, those strange people from the north of your world, are in arrangement with me. I have given them a tiny spot on the big island where they can conduct a trading post. It is small, subject to inundations, and the interior people of that island, wild and uncivilized, may very well wake up hungry one morning and arrive at the conclusion they would like to eat Dutch. They will be observed. Now Chen, tell me what you would like. We have all the Spaniards from the ships defeated by Captain Tento. I would like to hold them for ransom and ask that you allow me to imprison them in a castle under your suzerainty. You are wise to consider this, Chen. Did the captain want to put them to the sword? Yes, my lord. That he did, and I must say, he demonstrated on one of the poor devils what he would have done had I not made the request. Let me then try to equal the generosity of the good captain with this that I will allow. Take the prisoners to my castle fort at Kalung on the Big Island. This is not a very nice place, and if a cyclone should envelope them they will tremble and despair. But it is safe and, if needed, you will be able to retrieve them. Chen, I cannot tell you how good it was to see you. Thank you for allowing me to do this small favor for you. Captain Tento, it is a pleasure to have met you. Chen and Tento replied in order. My lord. Likewise, sir. With this, the interview ended and they were escorted out of the room. Charts and maps were reviewed. Lines drawn. And soon enough they delivered their cargo to Kalung. Perhaps not soon enough for Tento, who was starting to dislike having the Spaniards on board his vessel. Off the island and not too far out to sea, Certainty set a southerly course and pressed for Manila. The city was reconnoitered by a party which included Tento and Chen. It was determined that although the Chinese community was faring well, it was kept in a state of servitude by the Spaniards. Tento felt he and his crew with Chen and his men could end that unwanted arrangement. Chen agreed, but stated also that the Spanish would send more of their dogs, and put things back to this miserable state, and possible worse. But they would attack and they would banish the current contingent of Spaniards. Chen gave as his explanation, I am not a great man and know little of the world's ways. But I do know that these Spanish are not capable of great things and holding on to vast empires. We, on the other hand, are. Tento and his men fought bravely and with skill. Chen's contingent, learning to fight like pirates and using methods of warfare of their own design, further plundered the Spaniards holding the city. After these actions they celebrated the removal of their adversaries, drank to the future, Chen admitting they would be back but he would be prepared, and Tento conveying how much he had enjoyed the fighting, announcing also, that now it was time for him to return to the islands where his sister waited. There is no limit to the amount of depravity men will do when put to it. So Captain Tento found when he reached the island he left a year ago where the last group of Peruvians had intended to settle. The ship was gone, but he spotted a stockade fort built on a bluff set to make use of the natural defensive advantages the position offered. While still offshore he witnessed what appeared to be skirmishes undertaken by people outside the fort upon those inside. This so vexed him, he was ready to lower a boat and immediately determine the character of the martial activities before him. Instead, he saw the foolishness in so doing, and filled his sails to obtain the open sea and to wait for nightfall. Carpenter, you remember the gongs Chen's men used when we were attacking Manila? I want you to make as many as you can with the materials we have aboard. I am convinced the copper sheathing will do for the metal and there is wood and line enough, so you can do this for me, yes? I am sure that I can, Captain. And would you like that in C sharp or F major, sir? Sometimes some people know too much. Now on with it, sir. To the rest of those gathered he said, and we will make use of another gift Chen gave us, the fireworks. The next night, shortly before the light was gone from the sky, Tento set the Certainty towards the island in the vicinity of the stockade fort, making it appear he was maneuvering for an assault on the beach. The islanders, taking notice, ran to the water's edge raising spears and clubs in aggressive warlike articulation. They ran along the shore away from the fort following the ship's course. These proceedings continued until the real night had fallen and the light was gone from the sky. 3 boats were lowered, 2 sailed towards the shore and the third went in the direction of the fort. Gongs on the 2 shorebound boats were pounded, and their tones reached the islanders, causing them alarm. They turned and ran towards the forest, then turned and ran back to the beach, repeating this a number of times as their confusion grew. The third boat was now able to make way towards the fort unobserved. As planned, when Captain Tento knew enough time had transpired for the boat to be close off the fort, he ordered the fireworks sent aloft. Such a wondrous blaze the islanders had never seen, Chinese rockets everywhere and an amplification of boom and bangs to add to the gonging already in progress. The perfect cover had been made for the pirates of the third boat to land and get inside the fort. There they found the remainders of the settlers, the ghastly survivors of some unknown as yet horrors, no doubt. The instructions given the pirates was carried out, which was to get those found in the fort out to the boat and then proceed to near the reef just inside the inlet. By further instruction, when they arrived off the inlet, the arquebus carried by one pirate was fired. Boulet, having mapped in his mind the times necessary for the activities of his plan, had previously collected back to his ship the two boats and was en route to the inlet. Having heard the shot of the arquebus, he knew his plan had worked. He was anxious to hear the story these fools would be telling him. Maitre dei, my lord. Oh, how merciful is our God to have sent you, the great Captain Tento, to save us, we who lived like miserable dogs for so long. The man speaking looked only slightly more alive than the others who had been rescued. Hardly recognizable, the face so shrunken that only the eyes retained their normal size, and they wept a most mournful horror. Tento recognized him as Pedro de Fontaine Ascanti, who had brought his wife out from Peru, she then being a member of Lima's highest echelon citizenry. As there were no women among the rescued, Tento asked, "What has become of your wife?" "My lord, you will never know. Nor I, her most broken husband. Look at me, sir. A great nobleman. They took her. It was a raid, like so many others. The screaming of souls being dragged along the beach. And it had started so well. It had. Yes. We made arrangement with the islanders which seemed mutually agreeable. They loved to have us as guests in their homes when feasting, and took a joy in telling us their stories. We would, I believed, make a colony. Governor Ascanti. Oh yes, I could have been governor, and my wife, we would have ruled. Isabel and Ferdinand may have their gold and jewels, but we would too. Now look at me, I despair. My urine is blood. My eyes look as through a veil and all is death. No, give me death on a pike, Captain, to this destruction of a man, the ruination of his soul. Do you have a wife, Captain? No. I have lost my honor. Where is she? Did they kill her? How can I face her family? Judging on the man's condition, a return to Lima seemed a very slim possibility to Tento. So, how did the worm turn and set your little colony on its heels? Sir, I can hardly talk, but some of the men in my party started to take advantage of the islanders, take their food, scare them with gunpowder. A ship's cannon was brought ashore and in demonstration they asked one islander to stand off at 50 yards up against a palm tree. The shot was directed toward the poor devil and there he was, dead as nails at a heap on the ground in front of the tree. This crazed them. Some of our men took to carrying away island women. After that outright hostilities always. Soon they took away my wife. Other men had been listening to Pedro's tale, and Tento got more from them. As they had come upon the island their ship had wrecked on the reef. A salvage operation brought all usable timber to shore and that is what they used to construct the fort. Their concerns at first were not too great because they knew he would be back for them at the passing of a year. When they had been on the island for almost 10 months, engaged in the constant hostilities, and it seemed as this would be a standoff which, God willing, they could endure until the arranged rendezvous, the islanders started to drop in front of the fort dead and dying individuals, ravaged by disease unknown on the island. To the would-be colonists, the sickness they were seeing was merely the plague. The constant warfare worsened. In their weakened state the Spaniards also got sick and would very soon have died off if not for the rescue. This accounting worried the captain, and he said to make all haste to determine the fate of his sister, to which island he set a course, leaving the third party to be rescued later, if they were still among the living. Yolanda. What happened here? Tento was shaken by the appearance of his sister, who looked dreadful, although she managed to beam at her brother, and now that he stood with her, she knew that she was saved. After stopping at the third colony, I came directly here, and good that I had, as you may not have lasted much longer. Well, you saved yourself a bit of unnecessary sailing by avoiding the other station. That was abandoned, and the survivors came here. Their ship was dismantled for our fort. Few remain. Let's get you off this island, and then tell me. I should never have left you. I can tell you quick enough what happened. The people in our party had only the intention of plunder, and they made enemies of the islanders. Of course they were all so nice in the beginning, making out as if there would be friendship among both people. That wicked Teresa, she was the ringleader. The men, soon suffering and sick, set her up as on board when they half worshipped her, and she, delusional herself, believed the mess they fed her. Yet, things may have worked out, but after a few months the islanders started to develop sickness they never had before. Many died. What could it have been but we, who brought them such pestilence? They have since sought every way imaginable to kill us. They took the lifeless body of Teresa and cooked and ate her 200 feet from here so we could see. When they were done, one of them took a bone with the foot still attached and ran up to our fort and hurled it over the side. I thought I would die, so sickened. Look at just the few of us who remain. I never lost hope of your return. For these people I feel terrible and ashamed. Let us pray together and go. I have nothing I want from this island. As the boats made their way back to certainty, Tento looked about him, forward and aft. What had he come to know by this 2-year voyage? What is an island? Where does the sea stand in the heavens? He looked at his sister. He loved her.